We've got football this weekend, people, like a game at Lucas Oil Stadium football. Let's get hyped about it and let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right. Thanks for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's show is brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs, which helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Just post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. What is up, y'all? This is Jake Arthur and Zach Hicks of horseshoehuddle.com. I'm your resident media member for the site, and Zach is your resident film nerd for the site. And today we are talking preseason football. But first, if you want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly, get the inside scoop, ask us your burning questions, follow the link in our show notes. We get questions all the time. We get those answers fired out. And we're really enjoying this whole thing. So we would be glad to have more of you hop on there. So again, that's in our show notes. Just follow the link and sign up. But anyways, preseason football, Colts, Broncos this Sunday at 1. We're going to kind of break this into rookies and young players that we're really looking forward to watching. Position battles that seem to have plenty of consequence of this one for the Colts. And then maybe not some surprise studs, but like guys on the lower pegs of the roster and depth chart who might surprise some people and be some studs either against the Broncos or throughout training camp or throughout the preseason. So let's go ahead and talk about these young guys first, Zach. I think we got to talk about Anthony Richardson first, do we not?
Yeah, no, I think we do have to start off with Anthony Richardson. It's just going to be seeing him in live action football again for the first time in almost a year at this point. Like, plenty excited to see him back out there, even if it's only going to be for, I'm assuming it's going to be like a series or two out there. I can't imagine it's going to be too much. I know you and I have been talking a lot off air that we expect the Colts to kind of do what they did last year when it came to the preseason, where I think like 2 series the first game here, nothing in game 2 because they're going to have the joint practices throughout the week. And then in game 3, you'll probably see them play like the whole first quarter or something like that. But whatever it is, whatever we see out there from Anthony Richardson this weekend, I'm excited to see it. Just don't get hurt. Please don't get hurt. If you're going to take a hit, bump into the guy and then fall down and take it easy or something. I don't know, but like, don't get hurt. Go out there, complete some passes, get your legs out under you, and show what you can do again. But I'm excited to see him back on the football field. It's always awful seeing a guy go through the injuries that he went through last year, and just you're going to be holding your breath a little bit when you see him out there. But it's going to be nice to see him on the football field at least.
Yeah, for sure. And for all of us, and maybe even for him, just getting that first hit out of the way. Like, hopefully he's not out there doing a bunch of Superman stuff, but whether it's a QB hit in the pocket or just being shoved out of bounds or something, like, just to get that contact from another team out of the way probably, is reassuring, because that's kind of everyone's waiting with bated breath there. But we talk about Anthony enough. Let's move on to some other guys we're really looking forward to seeing. Pair of rookie receivers, one of whom just got boosted up the depth chart a little bit. A.D. Mitchell and Anthony Gould. And to me, I think it's especially entertaining when you factor in that the Broncos on their side have their own exciting rookie receiver, Troy Franklin. That's a guy who we talked about even being an option for the Colts in the second round. I think he fell to the 4th, was it?
4th or 5th, yeah. It was pretty late.
Yeah.
We were a little off on that one, I think.
Well, that was his stock that everyone pretty much had. But then the Broncos also got a new nickel defender in Chris Abrams-Drain, who he might match up with Anthony Gould plenty in this one. So, a couple duo-on-duo exciting rookies.
Yeah, I think the thing for me with the Colts edge of that, A.D. Mitchell and Anthony Gould, I'm excited to see how much these guys play in the preseason, because, we don't think Joe Flacco is going to get much run in the preseason. Like, it'll probably be a lot of Sam Ehlinger that we're going to see out there, but A.D. Mitchell and Anthony Gould aren't de facto starters. I mean, Gould kind of is because of Josh Downs' injury, but these guys aren't established starters. They're not guys who like Pierce and Pittman are likely not going to play much in this game. But I'm curious to see if like they play until like the second quarter, they play maybe till the end of the first half, or if it's more of like, hey, these two guys are within our top 4 wide receivers. We're going to pull them out within, those first 2 series, like we pull out all the other starters. So whatever we see from them, though, I mean, it's always fun to see rookies getting on the football field, and Gould and Mitchell are 2 explosive, fun players who have had good camps so far. Just excited to see them out there and working with Richardson, maybe working a little bit with Flacco, and then if they're out there with Ellinger, seeing what they can do with Sling and Sammy here in the preseason. We know how Sling and Sammy works in the preseason. The Colts have a good chance of winning some games this preseason because they got Sling and Sammy back there. And we'll see if A.D. Mitchell and Anthony Gould can be this year's version of Mike Strawn, who went crazy every single preseason with Sling and Sammy.
The Colts did not used to win preseason games until Sammy came along. I'm telling you, like,
it's
he's
funny.
A good preseason quarterback to have. Like, he's just good enough to win against the JV squads of everyone else.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, when he was coming out in the draft, I compared him to Colt McCoy, like the NFL prospects of Colt McCoy, where it's like, this is just going to be a really good QB3 type guy. And he's kind of been that. And he's just that guy where, like, just like Colt McCoy was in Washington for all those years, you're going to be a good preseason team. And you're going to develop some receivers because of that. Because, look, Sammy's good enough to be on an NFL roster. It's just probably not much more than that. But it does make preseason games a little bit more fun when you have a quarterback who can actually play back there.
Yeah, without question. So with, Mitchell and Gould, they're going to have different styles. I could see Gould maybe getting a few more receptions. Plus, they have to get him up to speed pretty quick. Mitchell, I just think they probably want to see what they got. Everyone's very confident and bullish on him, but he's just kind of not necessarily a plan. Just go out there and win your matchups and let's see what happens. Get some film on him, some stuff to critique on film again and work on in practice. So I'm really excited to see those guys. And then the belle of the ball, Laiatu Latu, who we may see going up directly against Broncos rookies Bo Nix and Audric Estime. That could be a nice little, preseason week 1 flashy highlight for, ESPN to show all over the place, not just here in Indy.
I need to see some Laiatu Latu on the football field, man. Yeah. I've gotten just too excited about the potential of having a very good edge pass rusher. And again, maybe I'm buying too much into the hype. Maybe I'm living too much in the hyperbole at this point with him, but I really do think this has a different feel to it than the Kwity Paye's or the Dio Dangbos or the Kamoko Tourés of the past did. And I'm not even saying that those are all bad players. I mean, Kwity Paye's a very solid player. Dio Dangbo's a very solid player. But it just feels different with Laiatu Latu, where he's consistently winning. It's not a project. We're ready for him out the gate. And honestly, I would just play him with the starters out there. Maybe you give him a whole quarter just because you want to get his legs under him because he's a rookie and you can get him running a little bit more. But treat him like a starter. He's a starter at this point for the team, and he's had such a good enough camp to where it's like, get him the extra reps that he needs on the field. But at the end of the day, he's kind of proven that he deserves to be up there with the starters.
Yeah, I don't know much about Denver's line, but I hope their line stinks. I think we all want to, like, how hyped would that be? The first preseason game for the Colts at home every year is the whiteout game. You get your all white uniforms. It's your Anthony's back in the building. It's your first time seeing Latu, and he goes out there and gets a sack.
Yeah,
like that would just be chef kiss. We really want to see that.
I don't need their O-line to stink. I just need him to be good. I hope that they're the greatest offensive line in the history of football, and Laiatu Latu still gets a sack. That's more of my take on that.
Okay, so you're playing on All-American. I'm playing on rookie. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yes, exactly. But no, seriously, I just want to see him on the field, man. Like, I don't know if I've been as excited for a rookie season for a non-Anthony Richardson, obviously, but like for a rookie season first round pick from the Colts in like a while. I know there's not a ton of them, but like Kwity Paye, again, there was tempered expectations. Even like a Quentin Nelson, like it's an offensive lineman. Even he had some tempered expectations too. But with Laiatu Latu, man, it's like this can be a legit game-changing guy from day one. And I just want to see what he looks like in his first action. Like, even if it's 5 to 10 pass rushing snaps in this game, I want to see what he looks like in that. Is it are we seeing the ability to win off the edge and create pressure like we saw in college, or is the strength going to be an issue? Is there going to be some issues with turning the corner? I don't think we're going to see issues at all. I think we're going to see a very productive player, and hopefully he can come down with the sack, but just a couple pressures, and I'm going to be as giddy as can be.
Yeah, I just need the Colts defenders to understand that Audric Estime runs violently. Keep your head on a swivel, and please protect yourself out there.
Yes.
But coming up next, we're going to talk about some position battles on the Colts that, the decision-making may get started here with this first preseason game. When you're hiring for small businesses, you want to find quality professionals who are actually right for the role that you got. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board either. They actually help you hire professionals who you can't find anywhere else, even people who aren't really actively searching to leave their current job, but might be open to the perfect role elsewhere. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you ain't looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats nowadays that they don't really have time to actually go through the entire hiring process. So LinkedIn has made the job easier for you. They even just launched a new feature that helps you write job descriptions. That's just one of many reasons that 2.5 million small businesses trust LinkedIn for their hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
And thank you, Locked On Colts everydayers, for making us your first listen today and every day. And for your second listen, enjoy the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. Get daily insight into the best fantasy draft strategies so you can win your league this season. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Jake, so the Colts have several camp battles heading into this first preseason game. And while we might not get the definitive answers that we're looking for in this game, I do think we're going to get some clarity at a lot of these positions. And luckily for the Colts, I don't think there's too many that are up for grabs in terms of starters, besides one, which we're going to talk about first here, which is whatever's going to happen at safety next to Julian Blackmon. Whether it's someone starting at free safety with Julian Blackmon at strong safety, whether it's someone starting at strong with Blackmon at free, the Colts are going to figure out something at safety. And this Sunday feels like the first step. I know Assistant General Manager Ed Dodds did talk to you guys. Yes, I think it was yesterday, right, Jake? It was yesterday. Yeah, he spoke to you guys yesterday and said they want to see a little bit of the games first and see what these guys look like on the football field before they really make that ultimate decision and see what it really looks like back there at safety. So it feels like Sunday is a pretty big first step for figuring out who's going to be back there next to Julian Blackmon. We know that Nick Cross has the early edge and has the inside track right now, but it's still between the 3 or 4 guys that are competing for that other spot.
Yeah, and this will be tricky for them because they obviously don't want to play Blackmon too much, but a big part of this is who works the best with Blackmon, who has the best chemistry, best communication with him. I don't know that they're going to be able to simulate that a whole lot. That's probably going to have to come from practices again, especially the joint practices. But no, playmaking obviously is great, but just not, being where you need to be. You talked about it yesterday, being in the right spot, not blowing coverages, and just showing like a general understanding of what you're doing and what's going on out there. Once that's all accomplished and you're more comfortable out there, that's when the plays can come. They're just riding such peaks and valleys with these guys. Like they're picking off passes one day and then they're blowing a coverage for a touchdown or killing their teammate the next day. It's like just some consistency. That's what the coaches are screaming for. So you don't even have to be putting up a bunch of picks and forced fumbles or anything. Just don't be a detriment to the team while you're out there.
Right. The two aspects I think they're looking for in the other safety, and obviously it changes whether this guy's going to be playing free safety or strong safety. But the two aspects you're really looking at are communication. Communication is obviously the biggest part because where the Colts really got hurt last year, especially in the red zone, especially on third downs, and then occasionally on deep balls, was communication. Who's taking who's matching what route, who's got the over-the-top coverage and stuff like that. They really did get hurt a lot by that last year. And then tackling. Which guy's missing tackles, which guy's making tackles. Last year, Nick Cross was the best tackler in the safety room besides Julian Blackmon. He still had I think it was like an 11 or a 12% missed tackle rate, but that's a little more doable than I think Rodney Thomas was in the 20%. So they need their secondary to be able to tackle, because our guy Colts Film Room, I think he put a really good chart out there on Twitter the other day. If I had it in front of me, I would put it up too on the video here, but he put a chart of all the 20-yard receptions the Colts allowed last year, and a majority of them were catches that were under 20 yards, that were run after catch, creating missed tackles, and then running, down the sideline or something. We saw a lot of them on screenplays too, for instance, especially late in the season. So whoever's going to win this other safety battle, the communication is key, so they can stay over top of routes and obviously just be more instinctive. But also, who's going to finish the plays? Who's going to make the tackles? Who's going to make sure that if you have a guy lined up on 3rd and 6 and you have him lined up 2 yards short of the sticks, he's not getting to that first down line. That's going to be the most important part of this battle here, is who can actually make these tackles and complete plays. Because if you're missing tackles like we saw last year, your defense is going to just allow way too many big plays for you just to be effective at all.
And they've all got it in them. Like we saw Nick Cross improve last year. Rodney Thomas, expectations were very low as a rookie going into the year. But in the preseason, I was like, if he doesn't do anything else, I'm confident in his tackling. Something happened in year 2. I don't know. But they've both showed that ability. Ronnie Harrison, obviously, is a veteran. We didn't have a huge sample size last year. But if this is the group that goes into it, they'll, hopefully they can figure it out. The other argument is for a different day again. But in front of them, there are a couple other battles brewing. This is more of the cornerback depth. But I'm really looking at Micah Abraham versus Chris Lamons, and then Darrell Baker Jr. versus Jalen Simpson. Simpson's had some really nice moments during camp. Darrell Baker Jr. hasn't had the splashy camp he did last year, but I can't recall too many problems that he's had. And then Abraham was Kenny Moore's direct backup in the nickel all throughout camp until Lamons came back a couple of days ago. So those are 2 battles we looked at going into camp that I think are still very much developing.
Yeah, and one big thing to note too is last year when it came down to the Colts defensive back room, especially in the cornerback room, it came down essentially to Jalen Jones versus Darius Rush for who the Colts were going to keep. 2 rookies that they liked, but they ultimately kept Jalen Jones because of, 1, availability. That's obviously the biggest part of this. But 2, just his performance in the games and in the practices. And they were raving about Jalen Jones by the end of the preseason games. And I as someone who watched all those games and, had the all 22 film, Jalen Jones played some really great football in those preseason games. And that's really, I think, what pushed him over the edge in that battle. So I think when you're looking at these young players like Jalen Simpson and Micah Abraham, they have to have good games. They have to really stand out in these games, because if it's even close, the Colts are going to prefer to keep the younger guys that they just got on cheap 4-year contracts. But those guys have to make it close. I saw some quotes that Jalen Simpson, I think it was Gus Bradley, saying when he got into the camp here, his head was spinning a little bit. He was a little inconsistent, but he's really found his legs in recent weeks. And that's really what you want to see him do here in the preseason games. So find your legs a little bit, get out there, make some plays, and be the Jalen Jones of this offseason and make your roster spot. So I'm excited to see those 2 rookies out there. Again, rookies are always really fun to see on the football field for the first time, but those guys I'm very excited about.
One of the 2 is going to make a house call to Zach Wilson. I'm calling it in this game. Zach Wilson is going to give one of them a gift. But looking at this last position group we're talking about, tight end. So personally, just from what I've observed, I think Drew Ogletree, Mo ALIE-COX, and Kylan Granson are pretty safe. Will Mallory has been banged up. He's missed about a week or so. Jelani Woods has been out there, but he's not had the strongest camp. So it's kind of Jelani versus himself at this point. Just improve, just get better, and, try and make each new day better than the last one, because he has had a couple days with drops. But I mean, they drafted him to be a big play mismatch guy. I mean, just, come down with the ball and get in the right spots, run your routes as crisply as you can. We'll see what the blocking looks like. But I mean, if Jelani can go out there and just maybe he's more of a gamer, you know what I mean? As a rookie during training camp, it wasn't a great camp. It was all about Drew Ogletree. He had a great camp. And Jelani was just meh. But during the season, I mean, Jelani looked pretty good in flashes. So maybe he turns it on and he's kind of a gamer. But I'm wanting to see what he can do against a different team.
Yeah, I'll be real quick with this. I'm curious to see how long he plays because I don't think he's going to play with Ellinger in like the third or fourth quarters by any means, but do they give him like most of the first half? Because like how much does Granson and ALIE-COX really need to play in the preseason? Like those guys don't need to be out there. They played a lot of football in their careers at this point. So I think we'll see a lot of Ogletree. I think we'll see a lot of Woods. And if Woods gets like the whole first half, like you want to see him make some plays with Richardson and then obviously with Flacco, whatever length of time that Flacco gets on the football field there.
Yep, absolutely. So here we're going to talk about some of the guys lower on the depth chart who we think might turn some heads, Sunday versus the Broncos or really throughout camp or throughout preseason. Zach, what time is it?
Game time.
That's right. I was hoping you would say that. So, at game time, when it comes to buying MLB tickets or really for any event that you're trying to get out to, you got to go to Game Time. They are an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually decrease the closer that it gets to the first pitch. They've got their killer last-minute deals, all-in prices. You get your views from your seat first, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes all the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. They've got their last-minute deals, which means you save up to 60% off of buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, whatever. Flash deals, you can save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or event. And then the most important thing for me is the Game Time ticket coverage, which means that your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so we'll do a little bit of taking turns here. I'll go ahead and give you someone who I'm really looking forward to seeing, who I think could turn some heads, and then you can give me some of your guys as well, Zach. So first up, I'm going to go with running back Trent Penix. I really don't know. I don't really know if there's anything he could do this summer to really crack the roster. I think it feels very much like, Evan Hull versus Tyler Goodson for that final spot. But every time the Colts have had a developmental period where it's like all the guys at the bottom of the depth chart or guys who just don't get enough snaps in the 11-on-11s, Trent Penix does something good. He can catch the ball, and he's, outside of Jonathan Taylor, probably broken the most big runs of camp. So he apparently knows how to follow his blocking because you can see linemen really dapping each other up, guys who opened up holes for him. This is a guy who just seems to know what he's doing. And we didn't really know what to expect from him coming into camp. Is he this weird Chris Cooley H-back type of guy? Kyle Juszczyk? Like, what is he? So far, he's just been kind of a big running back, but he looks good doing it.
I want him back there returning kicks, man. I don't know why they're not putting him back there returning the kicks. Like,
maybe he can block. He can be the up man on the kickoff return.
This is like a 240-pound guy who runs like a 4.5 and knows how to play running back. Like, put him back there, return the kicks. Like, I want to see it. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm excited to see him out there. I'll go with more of a known commodity. Like, I figure you're going to go with the really lesser known guys. I'll go with the slightly more known guys here. But DJ Montgomery, a guy last year who had some good flashes. I think one of the best stories, like in-game stories, I guess, for a Colts player last year was when DJ Montgomery dropped that touchdown late in the first half against I think it was the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yep. And
then the Colts got another drive before halftime, and he caught one long pass for like 30 yards and then caught a touchdown later in the drive on mesh to cap off that drive there for a score. So he redeemed himself within the game, a guy who had to struggle his way onto the roster after cuts and work through the practice squad. So DJ Montgomery, good story last year, did some good things for the Colts, has had a great camp so far. And while I ultimately don't think he makes the team, I think he's going to be that Sam Ehlinger guy this year where Ehlinger is just feeding him the ball like all third and fourth quarter. He's going to finish the preseason with like 20 catches because he's going to get like 4 or 5 a game because he's going to be the best player on the field for the Colts with Sam Ehlinger late in these games. And he's a good enough player where he could make the team. It's just the Colts are kind of, in a good place right now with the roster. But DJ Montgomery has had a good camp, has had some run with the ones this offseason, and he's going to be out there in like the third and fourth quarter. I think he's going to do some good things out there.
No, I'm all in on that. I talked to Brian Bratton the other day. He's the offensive quality control coach who works mostly with the receivers. I asked him about Montgomery, and he said, there's nothing like flashy or spectacular about him, but he's a dog. He works. He's not going to be outworked. He does everything right. He does everything you ask him to. And it's very Zach Pascal-ish in that manner. But, Pascal used to eat in these scenarios too. So Montgomery is – compared to the guys he's going against, is often going to be better. If he's going up against third teamers, he's usually going to at least be a tick better. Another guy who I could see getting some real chemistry going with Sam during the preseason is tight end Jordan Murray. So we obviously talked about the other tight ends just a minute ago, but Murray is like their last good pass catching tight end. So you've got like Eric Tomlinson, who's been around the league for 100 years. He's more of your blocker, but Murray is a guy who these depth quarterbacks do look for him in practice. And I got to say, he's got pretty decent hands. He can make contested catches. But God, when you're getting into like the fourth quarter, like I think he's going to play a ton this preseason. So between him and Sam and even Keaton Slovis, like I could see a good connection happening there.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the one to really bet on too, aside from DJ Montgomery. I'm going to go to defense with this next one, and we haven't talked about him enough this offseason because he's kind of solidified himself as a roster guy, but last offseason he was our darling, and that is Segun Olubi at linebacker. We love some Segun Olubi here on this show. He was our darling last year. He got a start last season for the Colts, in which he finished with like 9 tackles and an interception against the Carolina Panthers. Like really solid game, and he's just a fun player to watch, man. He's violent. He's like an old school linebacker. He attacks downhill. I remember last year our running joke in training camp was like, if you hear a loud crack out there on the football field, that's Segun Olubi knocking some heads around. And I don't know if it's been the same case this year because he's more of a solidified starter. He's not, fighting for his life out there. Like not a starter, but he's a solidified guy on the roster.
He's linebacker 3 right now.
Yeah. Like he's up there on the team. Like he doesn't need to fight like his life is on the line every single snap because it's not anymore. He's established on the team. But I'm excited to see him just unleashed again in a football setting and like in a real game setting, because when he's coming downhill in the run game, like he might miss. He does miss some tackles, but if he gets you squared up, it's going to be a loud hit and it's going to be a hard one. And it brings me back to the older days of football that we all grew up watching.
Yeah, I really like that answer. And that might be the one where him versus Audric Estime meet in the hole.
Oh, gosh.
And some sort of fireball happens. I don't know. Yes. So I really want to mention a pair of ends, Isaiah Land and Jannard Avery, but that's all I'm going to say about them. I think they're going to do fantastic this preseason, but I'll give you a couple deep cut nerdy answers. Linebacker Craig Young, who's probably going to play a good heavy amount, and corner Amir Speed. So Craig Young is like the latest athletic, lengthy, tall, slender linebacker that the Colts have. He's done a couple nice things during camp. So as a guy who I think is probably going to play a good bit, I could see him, let's see if he can make some splash plays. And then Amir Speed, he actually got onto the field for the Colts a little bit last year during the regular season. He is someone who made a strong impression on me early in camp, but then he was out for a few practices. He has since returned, and, he's kind of got that prototypical Colts defensive profile as well. Big corner, lengthy, he's not incredibly, it's kind of like Juju Brents where it's like not incredibly speedy or anything, but like all the metrics match. And that's kind of like the bottom of the roster corner version in Amir Speed.
Yeah. No, he's got a really fun profile. I think it's like 6'3", like 185.
He's
and
a
then
big dude.
Like 4'3" or something like that. Like he's super fast, super athletic, really long and lanky. I'll hit on some offensive linemen real quick too. Dalton Tucker out of Marshall has been getting some run with the second team. Excited to see what he can look like out there in the preseason. You guys know I love to fall in love with interior offensive linemen in the preseason. Will Fries, I was cutting up clips about Will Fries all season last year. So you guys know how I am with that. And then, at offensive tackle, Jake Witt. Does Jake Witt, showcase that he's good enough to make the roster this year, or is he more of a practice squad guy? I know he hasn't had the greatest camp so far, but when it comes to guys with his athletic profile, as long as he can just stay in front of dudes, I think that's good enough to stash him on the roster. That's really what offensive linemen are.
He might look better not going against Laiatu Latu in his defense.
That's true. That's true. I bet any offensive lineman would, but I'm excited to see what they look like in that real setting, especially Dalton Tucker too, because I'm not too familiar with his game. Where Witt, I kind of know what to expect with him, but Tucker, seeing him up there playing with the twos a lot in practice, I'm really intrigued to see what he looks like on the field.
Yeah, that's a couple good ones. Tucker has seen a ton of reps. He's spent time with the second and third teams. Like they're pouring a lot of resources into him. So there's something about him that they like. And especially with like Wesley French going out now. French wasn't just center. He'd been playing along the interior. So I think Tucker is kind of a direct beneficiary.
Yeah, so Tucker and then Tanner Bortolini as well, seeing him out there. We're going to see a lot of these young offensive linemen, see what they do. Matt Gonsalves, too. We're going to see him out there. Like, I'm excited to see what all these reserve guys can do and see if they can buy some time for these backup quarterbacks. But that's all we have for today, guys. Don't worry. We have practice tomorrow, right, Jake? Practice on Friday?
10 a.m. Friday morning. And that's it until the game on Sunday.
Awesome. So Jake will be back out there in Roosterville watching Colts practice, talking all about Colts practice tomorrow. So we'll be back with you guys tomorrow afternoon. Before we get out of here, though, I do want to thank you guys for making Locked On Colts your first listen today and every day. Now for your second listen, go make Locked On Fantasy. Go to the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast. Get daily insight into the best fantasy draft strategies so you can win your league this season. You can find the link to Locked On Fantasy Football in the descriptions, so you don't even need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And if you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get that inside scoop, also follow that link in our show notes. And if you guys don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on Twitter. Also subscribe to us on YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcast. We'd love your guys' ratings, reviews, and we'll catch you guys back here tomorrow afternoon.